Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Tropical MBA podcast, the show for founders running profitable, location-independent businesses. Today, we are going to talk about running six-figure agencies as a solopreneur. We're going to talk about trends, some tips, some tricks. Also, we're going to talk about successful selling strategies, not only for solopreneurs, but for any founder who's on the phone cutting deals with clients. To help us do that today, we've invited Jeff Pecaro from meetwingman.com. Welcome, friend of the show. Welcome back to the show, Jeff, for your umpteenth appearance.
Happy to be here, man. It's fun that I've started to get recognized as friend of the pod, Jeff Pecaro. It's a great personal achievement. It still makes me a little uncomfortable being noticed out in, not in public maybe, but at least at the conferences.
Cool. Jeff, at the top, one of the things you do is you help founders sell. So we are going to get to a segment where we share some of like how you run a six-figure agency as a solo founder, also some trends, because we know a lot of essentially kind of like founder plus EA or founder plus AI type of businesses. And we want to talk about some of your core takeaways from the Bangkok conference, plus some things you're implementing in your business. But at the top, I thought we could talk about selling, because that's what you help people do. And that's what so many of us need to improve in order to get to the next step. So let's talk about 5 quick tips here at the top about how founders can sell larger deals quicker. The first question I wanted to ask you is, what's the biggest struggle that you see founders having, and how can we overcome it?
My gut says getting out of your own way. I think that, the founders that I work with, for context, are typically selling 5-figure projects, 4-figure recurring services. There've been a couple of exceptions with 5-figure monthly services. And when you look at it, the difference between the people who, we meet sometimes in the course of our work with the conferences, who are struggling to close deals, struggling to close large enough deals, or really chronically underselling themselves, both in terms of confidence and in terms of pricing. And then the people who can turn around and sell something for $12,000 a month. The biggest thing seems to be holding themselves back with perfectionism. So whether that is strict adherence to a book that they read one time, or what their friend told them is the best sales system, whether that's strict adherence to trying to maintain their frame or be the alpha on the call, or something that they heard on Instagram, or whether they've gone and done the classic one-person agency move of hiring a sales rep, not giving them any training at all, not really having a process for them to execute, and then firing them sometimes 2, 3, 4 times. Typically what you're going to see as the common denominator is that people have tried to really grasp on too tight to something and ended up breaking it, like, Lenny and Mice and Men, instead of being able to be nimble with the market, being able to be human with the prospects who they're talking to, and generally being so rigid that they're not able to get these deals done in a way that encourages trust and that builds trust. We can't get on a plane as much anymore and take a briefcase and go do the steak dinner thing, where we're going to be whining and dining a prospect and talking about our kids. We all live in these boxes now, right? It's like the extent of your camera and a Zoom call. And so building trust becomes everything. And when people are stuck in that kind of, low 6-figure, even to mid 6-figure range, a lot of times the common denominator is that they've grasped on so tightly to the thing that they've broken it.
I guess the image that popped into my head, having done a lot of coaching and hung out with a lot of founders that are doing their own phone sales, essentially. Things get so tight that when something goes sideways in the call, they don't even feel comfortable being like, hey, could you just let me know, why isn't this a good fit for you right now? They can't even kind of pivot, because it's negative, I lost it, I judged it, I got to perform now to get it back. Versus taking the opportunity to be like, hey, this isn't a good fit for this person for some reason. Let's go down that path and figure it out so I can adjust next time.
Totally. Or someone asks the wrong question out of turn or interrupts a presentation and the whole thing falls apart, right? Because they had carefully choreographed how they thought this was going to go. And they're using that as a placeholder for real mastery of their work and for developing real comfort and confidence on the call. I tell people all the time, and this is the product of being an internet poison millennial, but the midwit meme where the caveman on the left is like, just make connections with people. And the Jedi on the right is like, just make connections with people. And the angry guy in the middle is talking about the specifics of the kind of close and Jordan Belfort's book and maintaining frame. But he's not closing deals, and he's certainly not closing big ones.
Cool. Second thing, positioning. You mentioned that positioning is critical for cutting 5-figure deals and beyond. What do you mean by that?
We had a really interesting conversation at Bangkok late at night, as we tend to do, with a longtime friend who you and I both know is brilliant, does really high quality work, cares an enormous amount about his clients, and can't seem to crack consistent, healthy, successful client relationships where he's not working himself to death, and especially charging what he's worth, or charging really even what the market would dictate that someone of his talent is worth. And we were going back and forth with him about a number of the different possibilities for how he could improve the work that he does with his copywriting business. And ultimately, I came back to the idea that he is constantly coming into these conversations positioned as a freelancer, positioned as someone who's nervous, positioned as someone who's overly obsessed about the technical details and not the larger business problems that he's solving, or in some cases, the personal problems that he's solving for the clients who he does copywriting work for. And the people who I see who've really mastered this, similar to what I said on the last point about being too rigid, are able to position themselves as experts, partly because they know their little corner of the world inside and out. We used to talk about niching until it hurts, but I think that where that's actually an advantage is that you can rule your one little fiefdom and know it inside and out, so that when you get on a call with somebody, you can say, I am the best person in the world at social ads that build trust through your Instagram following, versus feeling insecure about coming in and saying, I'm prepared to sell these broad marketing strategy deals to the Fortune 500, right? Where if you can get super narrow, you can put yourself in the position of really knowing inside and out the work that you do, and position yourself as truly an expert in that one little area, so that you can bring that confidence to the call and that you can dictate to people what the best way to move forward is without feeling like you have the imposter syndrome, or without feeling like you're lying to them, frankly.
A lot of us come from a background when we're selling services that we are the crafts people. And so we understand the cost of every nut, bolt, and screw, except for we don't fully understand the cost of ourselves. So this is where you're working in your deferred salary that you would be making as a professional. If you're doing like the classic Greg Crabtree thing, like every moment in your services business that you're earning less than you would make in a professional salary, that is deferred, that you're essentially investing that into your company. And so you have to regain all that capital. And so what I think is common in the sales process is that the easiest thing to do is just offer discounts or to offer small margins, but we don't work in the margin of our professional ability and get out of the workshop and figure out the net value of the product to the marketplace. And then figuring out a frame, a position, anchors that make it worth it. So in the case of a copywriter, for example, if you like said, ready, set, go, Dan, go start a copywriting business. One thing that I think could do really well, or I think would be a really great product, is short ebooks or short reports that could be lead magnets that might happen every quarter or every half or every fiscal year. You go out and sell these things. And as a copywriter, you could understand, like, I do a few interviews, I do this research, I do all this artwork, I position it this way. Here's like what my costs are in terms of my team, my EAs, the AI, and all that. I think the tough part for a lot of founders is then putting the meaningful margin on top of that when you go out to the market and like, well, this ebook cost me $3,500 to produce. I could just sell it for $6,000. And it's like, yeah,
100%.
that. I feel like that's the trap that a lot of founders find themselves in those first sort of 3 years.
Bootstrappers constantly get stuck on focusing on what it costs because they know, what it costs to hire someone in the Philippines, or they know what they were able to do with AI, instead of what it's worth to the people in the market, and even what their competitors are charging. Oftentimes you're coming in against legacy players, and even if you undercut them, you still end up at a multiple of what your gut tells you to charge, because you know just how efficiently a DCer could hire these things overseas. But you're really underselling yourself again. and you're coming across as that backpacker who might be bouncing around the Philippines and sourcing labor, from a call center, as opposed to being a competitor in this professional marketplace.
Number 3, takeaway selling. Explain the concept and how we can put it to use for us.
Yeah, you asked me before the call some of the things that are interesting about the clients who I have who are relatively advanced versus the clients I have who are just getting started and looking to improve their sales process. And I think a big one that ties back in with the professional positioning is takeaway selling, which is to say, not hungering after every deal and coming across as desperate to get something closed or even excited necessarily to have a prospect. I've got 2 different clients right now who are operating from this position of, I'm not actually grateful that you're on the call. I am here to offer professional service, and the purpose of this call is to diagnose if you're going to be a good client for us, and we're going to deliver a good service for you.
That's alpha framing there, Jeff. I'm feeling like, man, I like
Well,
that.
I would say that he does an excellent job of not coming across as a sales bro. And it's not so much about like making an alpha move as it is being the professional in the room. And I am the doctor who's been asked here today to diagnose what's going on with you. And let's see if we can come up with a prescription that's going to help you, in this case, improve your hiring business, right? Similarly, I work with another excellent client, multi-7-figure business, who will candidly get onto closing calls and tell people the various reasons that they think they shouldn't buy and that it might not be a good fit for them. 2, make this multi-5-figure purchase and very significant lifestyle change. And the reason that he does that is because, honestly, we're not going to be a great fit for everyone. And bringing a bad client into a business is so exponentially more costly than generating a new lead.
It's very interesting. Yeah, for my little ebook business, what we got to do is figure out how much money you can make off of this marketing material and whether or not this is a legitimate solution to the marketing challenge you face. And so the beginning of the call should stick right into, is this a genuine unlock for the challenge you're facing in terms of your marketing? And can you profit meaningfully from your investment in the service? Because otherwise, you're not going to buy another one. You're not going to come back next year or next quarter. And so it's not a good fit because my LTV is going to be shot.
And I'm not going to have the opportunity to sell you better, more expensive services and have a long relationship with you as a client. So for your little ebook business, I might be trying to figure out, are you looking to publish this on Kindle and make an extra couple of $100 a month? Or is this your transition from being a highly paid professional into booking a TEDx talk, into getting a book deal, into launching a top 100 podcast in your category? Do you have a vision for how this book that I'm going to make for you on an annual or quarterly basis is going to help make you a thought leader or meaningfully drive deals for your agency? I really want to know that before I even talked about the price I was going to charge you and the process that we do. But many of the people in our space are just so excited to have the deal flow, especially when they're new, that they discount, that they beg, and that they lose this, again, perception that they're offering a professional service.
Yeah, so it's a good frame to think. I'm using the word frame because you framed it. The idea that whatever happens on a successful first sales call, if it closes, would be a small portion of the lifetime value of the client, right? Because you're going to want to do continuity, you're going to want to do upsells and deliver more value for the client. So if you're having trouble positioning something that pays yourself a meaningful margin on the first call, we've got work to do in other places in terms of our positioning, our sales process, our marketing, our pricing, our business model, maybe even our product.
100%. And so many of the people who I talk to about sales in these bootstrap companies are focused on clinging to every deal and following up forever because they understand the cost of a lead is so high. But what they're not focusing on often is what the customer journey is going to look like and what the lifetime value of the customer is going to be. So they worry about the fact that they spent $500, $600, $700 to get this new client, and they're trying to make that profitable and they're trying to close as many as possible. I would turn around and tell them that they should be filtering for people who could be a $10 million company someday. They should be filtering for people they're going to be able to grow with the company and offer additional services, offer higher level services, ultimately raise their rates if this turns into a 2-year 3-year, 5-year engagement. But that's really difficult when you're new or when you're young or when the business is young and you're just so excited to have deals come through the door for validation.
Okay, so speaking of which, we've had this conversation off air about marketing qualified leads versus sales qualified leads. I'm working with a few clients who were building out that process because sort of at the beginning, like everyone is a sales qualified lead, but then it can be demotivating when all of a sudden you find yourself cutting bad deals. You find yourself having low conversion rates. Is there a rule of thumb when we're doing 5-figure deals? What should be the conversion rate for any particular client coming onto a series or a single sales call?
This is going to start a fight, but I'm right. And I've probably seen more deals than you, angry listener. Typically I'm seeing around 30%. That's booked calls for qualified leads. So when we get into marketing qualified lead versus sales qualified lead, the minute you ask that question, I can tell you that marketing and sales aren't getting along. And marketing thinks they're delivering great people and sales thinks they're delivering terrible people. But what I've seen over thousands of deals across dozens of 7-figure companies is that if you book 10 calls, probably 2/3 to 3/4 are going to show up. Realistically, you're going to close about 30% of those, and you're going to end up predictably having an engine that if you've got an unbelievable closer, it might be 40. You'll hear people talking about how they're closing 2/3 or 3/4 of their leads. But what they're not telling you, the classic story behind the story, is the filtering that goes into the people who end up on those calls or the relationships that they have with the people who end up on those calls. So if someone came to me and said, well, we're closing 60% right now, I would want to know, are you doing intense filtering or are you really only selling to your friends? If you have an enormous number of referrals coming in from people who you're close with, that might be possible. But you're not going to scale a business off of people who you know, even if you're going out 4 nights a week and getting on a plane 12 months out of the year. If you're converting cold traffic, you're going to end up around that 25 to 40% mark. And I think that your safest bet for scaling is to plan on aiming for 30.
If I'm dipping below that number, what are some ways to filter when I've got a ad engine coming in and I don't want to turn it off quite yet because I still feel like these people have potential, but they're not quite showing up prepared enough. A lot of times I feel like services sellers, it's like you feel like you're the 6th service they've been on the, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
They're just not that ready to buy from you. What can we do to improve that rate?
Excellent question. We've kind of got a couple of questions in there. So if we're talking about, comparison shopping and we're talking about people who aren't just ready to buy from you yet, I think that it's worth calling that out in conversation. And people are often really shy about trying to acknowledge those sorts of things because they're scared they're going to lose the deal. They're scared they're going to be rude. Throw it out the window, abandon the script and let people know like, hey, okay, so obviously you're comparison shopping. Who else have you talked to? And have a candid conversation, not throwing them under the bus, but you should know your competitors. You should know some details of your competitors. And if you're in business long enough, you'll take clients from them. They'll take clients from you. It makes all the sense in the world to throw the BS out the window and have a frank conversation about what they're considering and why. Forget the niceties, especially in B2B. You're both adults here, right? So why not get down to brass tacks and say, what's actually going to get this deal done for you?
Do you ever do interventions? I'm thinking of like different types of funnels I've seen like that go from ad to call or email to call. Do you do email or video interventions pre-call as a way to sweeten the conversion rate?
I text everybody. I have my clients text everybody. Texas, congratulations, is making this a little bit more perilous for everybody. But I think it's always worth reaching out and confirming that someone's actually real, confirming that someone intends to show up. And it's just something friendly like, hey, just saw that you booked a time. Are we going to be talking about this? Because the volume that these agencies are operating at is not so crazy. It's not a weight loss offer, right? It's not a relationship offer. You're not driving thousands of leads through affiliate traffic. Ultimately, even if you're operating at a high level, we're talking about a few dozen calls a month, right? Maybe 100. It's like not meaningfully difficult to text those people. And again, be a real person.
What are some methodologies that you see working for people for closing the deals that require, I guess, like maybe two scenarios. One where they're not ready to make a decision on the phone, and then another where it's pretty clear they want to buy on the phone. They've indicated their interest, but they can't pay on the phone, or you don't have a system for them to pay on the phone. So like, how do we go from good call to money in the bank account? Do you actually ask for the money on the call for these 5-figure deals?
All right, let's give away some alpha. So
Yeah.
I'm moving almost everybody who I work with to a 2-call close. And this is another situation where we're going to get a bunch of angry comments. And I'm going to say, for the narrow world that I operate in with these agencies and service businesses, I'm right on this one. And there are a lot of like variables that go into it. But at the end of the day, this is going to be what's most effective for both people.
Damn, dude, you are setting frame. There's so much alpha on this call right now. There's so much alpha energy. There's so much alpha information.
I hate everything about this.
The objection for this is, man, now I got 2 calls. I already got too many calls because my calendar's booked out. Only 30% are converting. A bunch of people aren't showing up. And now you want me to do 2 calls.
I'm telling you that if you want to get to 30% reliably, if you want to have a chance at 40%, this is ultimately going to make it easier for you.
Okay.
And the reason it's going to make it easier for you is 2 things. One, we're setting the expectation from the front that we're going to be making a decision on the second call. So if you need your partner to be there, if you need somebody else to be there, some decision maker to be there, that's great. We don't have to worry about that today. But they better be there on the second call or we're not going to have it. More importantly, though, we're splitting the role of the calls into 2 things that are both easier for your clients to understand and easier for you and your team to execute, which is that the first call is entirely discovery. It is 100% focused on the client, and you can tell them that at the start to take any of the pressure off that they might be feeling like they need to have their guard up to make sure that they don't spend the Christmas money today, right? What we're doing on that call from the point of view of the business owner is gathering intelligence. So at the risk of sounding manipulative, we're trying to understand both the business elements of what they're trying to solve with, engaging an agency like you or hiring your service. But we're also trying to understand the effect that these problems are having on, are they losing sleep? Are they anxious? Are they missing Timmy's soccer game?
Okay.
The reason that we want all of that stuff spelled out for us is that when we turn around and we offer them a solution on the second call, where we're presenting a slightly customized version of the services we already offer, we can speak directly to the things we know that they care about.
So then you simply say, we've addressed everything we brought up in the first call. We've created the solution that addresses all of your concerns and generates the value that we're all excited to create together. We believe, based on our experience, that you're going to be successful with this service. We've all had a great conversation here today. Now we need to sign you up for $15,000 a month, or in some of your clients' cases, like a 6-figure deal. How are we getting the value exchanged?
Hey, Dan, appreciate that you've got 500 podcast episodes down and are still struggling to get this next book out. We think that we've got a plan that's going to take that off your hands. We've laid out for you today exactly how that's going to work and how the pricing is going to work. What do you think is the next best step here? Do you feel ready today for us to sign you up and get this started for you? I think we could probably have a first draft done for you by Christmas, with the idea being then you could take a break, pull it by the fire, give the first draft a read. And then by the time the new year starts, A, it's off your books for tax purposes, and B, we can hit the ground running in January.
I'm in.
It's not like rocket science. I would tell people over and over again that we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're ruthlessly applying best practices.
So you're sending me the invoice after the call.
It depends on the client, and it depends on whether we're dealing with bank transfers. Right. I think that for something like a very emotional offer, like something that's going to be coaching related or personal development related, it's really important to get that credit card on the call and to get people signed up, because you are helping them to overcome personal resistance that they have. For B2B, though, it's almost all, yes, I can send you an invoice and a copy of this presentation that we've gone over today. We're ready to get started as soon as we have gotten the invoice paid. Before I let you go today, let's schedule the kickoff call.
You're describing a process for a sale that's complicated that would have multiple stakeholders. So in the past few years, my process, which I'll share, would be for 5-figure deals that have one key decision maker that's, like you said, emotional. So what I'll do is there will be a text or email before the call that has less than 5 minutes of preparation so that they are prepared for the call in terms of what information they need to bring to the call so it can be successful. At the end of the call, if it's a close, what I will do is let them know exactly what will happen when we hang up the phone. And then I will hit them with text and email directly after with a reason for them to specifically take action on it by the end of the day. To let me know by the end of the day, because it will trigger an important next action that's critical for the timeline that you've pointed out.
I think that makes all the sense in the world. And whenever you can offer that reason why, the reason why you should come to the next call, the reason why you should sign up today, the reason why you should do this deal now and not 6 weeks from now, you're going to be a lot happier.
That's huge. That's been in my experience. It's like, swipe this thing by the end of the day because like the dominoes are going to start going. And if you don't get your domino in the right order in line, then everything gets mucked up next week. So like right when you hang up the phone, there is a next action to take to make sure the domino falls. And I like that you brought up the 2-call scenario, because if you've got a team, if you've got a partner, if you've got a stakeholders that need to agree to the terms in order to get this thing, even somebody who's paying your invoices on your behalf, well, then it's a more complicated, if it's not a credit card sale, essentially. Final thing. So we talked about like the key struggles people face, positioning, takeaway selling, kind of conversion rates, SQLs and MQLs, how to close. Just a little bonus tip. I met a traveling salesman the other day at the airport, and he sold piping. He did the whole thing with the Southern accent, telling me these pipes sell themselves. But here we are, selling in front of our laptops.
Yep.
What are some best practices and what's actually important in terms of sort of audio visual setup and stuff like that?
I think you'd be surprised how much effort goes into making me look this mediocre. But we've gone on and on today about trust, and especially about creating trust when we're selling remotely and we're selling through these Zoom windows. Like, so much business gets done nowadays. I would tell you that lighting is absolutely critical, which can be a very inexpensive fix for the camera that you've already got. I think that if you have an iPhone, again, I'm going to hold this up on every episode we do together. The camera on there is so great that if you take the time to either set up the software or get the software that allows you to stream through that, you're often going to be better off than investing in like a, multi-$1,000 SLR that, between you and me, Zoom can't even represent anyways. Showing up presentably, so looking like you are a professional, even if you're not going to the office. Little things like grooming, little things like appearance. You don't have to be like, I'm not in a suit and tie today, but I have put some effort into making sure that when I get up to go to work, I'm getting up to go to work. Half because I know I'm going to be on video, and half because that's going to put me into the mindset of being a professional person who hasn't just rolled out of bed to get onto the sales call, right?
That makes one of us. What about the microphone? Because I notice a lot of salespeople are rocking, corded or earbud type headphones. Would you upgrade to some kind of more professional mic?
Yeah, I mean, I was telling you before the call, the collection of microphones that I've got hidden behind the monitor here. I'm always looking to make sure that two things are perfect. One's going to be my internet connection and one's going to be my sound. And where an iPhone can do an excellent job of creating, stream quality video, I think the microphone on it's pretty horrible. I think the microphone on your MacBook is pretty horrible. I think that being able to communicate clearly and being able to, again, come across like you're a professional operation is so important, and I wouldn't compromise on sound. So I started with, a collection of different podcast microphones. I've ended up on a Shure MV7, but ultimately I think it's a matter of getting something that's going to be affordable for you, that's going to be comfortable for you, and where you like the sound that comes across, so that you're not feeling like you sound like Kermit the Frog all the time or Darth Vader or whatever else. So you can be comfortable while you're creating these relationships with people, because that's all it is at the end of the day.
If you're working out of co-working spaces and stuff like that, it's doable. You can actually do all this stuff out of a co-working space. You just need a dynamic microphone. That means it only captures the sound that's right in front of it. Get your lighting right. And if you don't have an external monitor, elevate your laptop on a laptop stand and get the right frame. So those are some tips there. Cool. Anything else on the little tippy, tricky kind of Calendly?
I think if you're not recording your sales calls, you're crazy. And there are an enormous number of tools that will help you both record and transcribe. the calls that you're having. Your mileage may vary depending on where you live and what the legal situation is there. But if you're not recording and reviewing your calls or your reps calls, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And with the number of AI tools that are available today to help you transcribe those, you're sitting on a gold mine of information about what's worked in your sales process, what hasn't, what you could improve. And I talked to a surprising number of people who still aren't doing it, potentially because they don't like what they're going to see. If you are, paying for your own dinner, I think that it behooves you to put a lot of effort into taking advantage of the data that you're creating.
Great tip. Where is the line between phone and email sales nowadays, Jeff? Just a fun little internet question.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it's a real 50-50, and there are two legitimate schools of thought. I think that there's an argument to be made that people don't like buying on the phone and no one wants another sales call. I also don't think that you are going to create the trust that's necessary to do high dollar B2B deals specifically for agencies and service businesses without creating that personal relationship. So the line to me is what you're selling and how much you want to charge for it. I don't necessarily love being on camera any more than you do, but we don't choose the world that we live in. And I think you can choose whether you're going to adapt to reality and succeed in it or whether you're going to keep trying to hide behind your keyboard. And that's fine. It's just probably not a great choice for this business model.
So I'm hearing you say $1,000.
It's probably higher than that. It's probably a couple $1,000s, but I would tell you that a bigger switch than the price point is going to be if it's recurring or not. So if you were asking someone to sign up to a membership, I think there's a much higher bar for how much they know you and trust you.
And it's all a positioning game too, because people will buy conference tickets or workshop tickets. When I bought Vern Harnish's workshop, I did do a sales call for that. A very curtailed sales call. I was already sold. So there's certain things that you could charge multi-thousands depending on your brand.
But again, we come back to positioning, and it's not just about like trying to be the big dog in the room, right? It's, do people know, like, and trust you? The old stuff is new again. And if people know, like, and trust you, it's going to be a lot easier to sell them whatever you're trying to sell them. But how do you do that through just text? If it's a long-term engagement, if it's a critical business process, my experience has been that the call is still a cheat code there.
Cool. What I want to do right now is shift gears and talk about some of your biggest takeaways from DCBKK, our annual event in Bangkok, which we collaborate on. You're a core part of the team for that. You have been since, I believe, 2015.
10 years.
10 years. 10 years. The gold Casio's in the mail. Consider it done. And let's then talk about maybe some of your takeaways from the conference specific to these kind of small six-figure service businesses, because that's really how you're going into it. And I think it's interesting that you've got this really healthy six-figure service business. You're coming into the event. There are a lot of us listening that have these six-figure service businesses. We are the primary driver of the business, and we have assistants, we might have some VAs, we might have some AIs. I'm curious as to what some of your top takeaways from the conference were.
One of my big takeaways was the number of 6 and even 7-figure businesses that are still one person, and how confidently they would tell you to stay that way as long as possible, to really resist adding headcount when there are, I'll tell people that my team right now looks like me and a whole bunch of bots. And part of that was the necessity as we grew, that those are very cost-effective ways to extend my reach as the business gets bigger. But I talked to a couple of people at the conference who were running 7-figure one-person businesses. And a lot of what they were doing was using AI to extend their capabilities. A lot of what they were doing was using freelancers, even if they had to pay a premium for it, to resist the urge to increase their burn rate and to bring people on board who that they then had to spend mind share on managing and on finding work for. It's amazing how many people will tell you to get an EA, but don't have an answer for what the EA is going to do for them once you have one. And it's the underpants gnome meme a little bit, like hire EA, a whole bunch of question marks, and then profit, right? Like, well, I guess they'll book a flight for me someday. I'm not married to the idea of staying one person forever, but I think that it is really impressive what one person can do now by using these tools and using freelancers to expand their reach. And for a long time with the conferences, we talked about a challenge being how many bootstrap businesses don't want to hire and don't want to increase their headcount. I think that these AI tools may have flipped that script and made it an advantage for people to stay small as long as possible.
All right, let's run through some takeaways here. Number one, founder fit in 2026 is more important than ever. Or is that just you?
Having done this for 10 years, you start to see some trends for the people who are on stage, for the people who are having exits. And I've been struck over and over again by the number of successful businesses that struggle because the founder comes to hate what their day looks like and hate the kind of things that they need to do for the business, versus the number of people who I've seen go from a stagnant service business at low six figures to explosive growth when they move into something that's a better fit for their skill set and how they want to spend their days. And it seems a little bit silly and like a little bit precious to say, well, I would be perfectly happy waking up every day for the next 10 years and working on this problem if I knew it was going to build generational wealth for my family. But in practice, years 2, years 3 can get pretty bleak. And I don't know that everyone wants to have 1,000 bad days on the way to this big goal. But I do know that if you are working on something that you enjoy with people who you like, and that is a natural fit for what you're good at, those 1,000 days are going to be a lot faster and a lot easier.
I love this takeaway from the conference because, look, like you're the primary driver for your business. One of my takeaways is like every business needs a champion, right? You are the champion in your business if you don't have a CEO. You probably, if you're listening to this right now, you're the champion in your business. And the interesting question is like better businesses tend to solve harder problems. Harder problems tend to take expertise and energy. Are you that expertise and energy? And if no, then you might have a budget version of it and you might never build the innovations or the moat required to get to your financial goals. So I think it's a really interesting takeaway. The classic example is the marketing services company where the person is ultimately truly motivated to be in the woodshed writing my ebooks. This is what I love to do. But if writing the ebooks itself isn't the engine or the hard problem to solve to grow the company, which it isn't in a lot of marketing agencies, it's actually sales and sales process and marketing. And so if you're not willing to solve that hard problem, in other words, positioning yourself, distinguishing yourself, advertising yourself, and then hustling on the phone, no one's going to know about your workshop. And so that is actually the hard problem to solve in most marketing services businesses. And so the question is, are you motivated to do it for 5 years? And I think the answer for a lot of us is no.
So many of the people who I work with are in the position that they are because they were good at something and it took off, especially when you're talking about a marketing services business. But they didn't intend to be a CFO and they didn't intend to be a VP of sales or a sales manager even. And so they find that as the business grows, they start wearing a number of different hats that, we all talk about like, oh, the business owner has to wear 8 hats and is delegation like right for me or not? But no one thinks when they're getting started about whether they're going to hate the hat that they grow themselves into. It's sort of like an analog of the Peter principle where you grow into a level of your own incompetence. You can grow into a level where you hate what you're doing every day.
Number 2, takeaway. 2026 could be the year of trusting the algorithm gods. Hot take. This is really interesting one. What do you mean?
I kept talking in my mastermind about having faith in the meta algorithm and having faith in IG and having faith in YouTube. And I think the people around the table were looking at me like I had 2 heads. But the trend that I'm seeing both in my business and working on the talk for the last 2 conferences has been things like the Facebook ads algorithm is getting a lot better at finding people who relate to the ad that you've put in your ad copy. And if your ad copy is speaking to broke people or bad clients, it's going to do an efficient job of finding them. The YouTube people who I'm talking to are all excited about the advantage for new businesses and for new channels because YouTube is promoting niche content so much more than they're promoting the big Logan Paul, Mr. Beast kind of accounts. And if you use YouTube frequently, you'll notice that they do a really excellent job of finding you these super niche, super interesting videos for channels that might have 1,000 subscribers. Similarly, my experience has been that Instagram, which I'm using heavily this year as my daily driver really for social traffic, as well as like a services landing page, has done an incredible job. If you're boosting a post, if you have something on a trial post, if you have something that goes, quote unquote viral with 5,000 people in your target market, that the 5,000 people who they show it to are really specifically targeted to the content that's in that video. And so I talk about having faith in the algos as I think there's never been a better time to start publishing if you're not publishing. And we may have reached that dream, right, where the social marketing works on its own.
There's kind of this flip where it's like you would have like a few pieces of creative that talk about like top level brand promise. And then you would have your ad agency go out and target it to all these different demos, right? And then you would put your kind of refining energy into where we're spending money and how specific and how good are these different demos and platforms. Whereas now it seems like it's flipped to be like, well, forget about all that. Let's just put all our energy into making tons of like very niche-y creative and letting the algorithm distribute it to the 15 amazing clients that are going to take the time to watch it. 3 are going to book a call. And I'm just going to keep making creative like that. So really, really targeting in on the specific value proposition for a small group of ideal clients.
And I've probably gone too far into the details of each platform because I'm excited about it. But the message that I would give to the audience is that I think what's old is new again. And that if you can really understand deeply who your target market by doing things like surveying your current clients, and if you can speak directly to those people, I think there's a chance that the algos are going to find more people for you in 2026 than they ever have before.
All right, number 3, insight. 110% authenticity on social. Was that your insight? Getting what you're looking for versus getting what you want.
My big takeaway from running a bunch of Facebook ads this year has been that the Andromeda update in particular is going to find you the kind of person that your creative says you're looking for. So if you make a bad ad that's speaking to the wrong target market, that's going to be the person who comes through on your calendar. Yeah. Versus if you are able to get super specific about the kind of people you work with, even to the point of really ugly, really stupid direct ads, you're going to have dramatically better results, even if you don't want to show it to your mom.
Everybody's talking about AI at the conference. What's kind of your meta takeaway about AI and its usage in the community?
If we look back at the last 10 years of conferences, we've never gotten more pitches about a single topic than we got about AI for DCBKK 2025. And it was challenging for our team to sift through what was different about them and what was specific about them. But the thing that almost all of the good ones had in common was that AI isn't ready for mainstream in terms of taking away your jobs. But the oft-repeated phrase about the person who's going to take your job is a person using AI was represented in our conference by the people who we are seeing having great results and replacing processes in their business are having these AI-enabled humans and these AI-enabled processes where one person can either do the work of multiple people or, more importantly, multiple people can do 10 times the work that they used to do.
Okay, cool. So what we did was we covered 5 selling tips and your top takeaways, especially for services businesses in Bangkok this year. Any other final thoughts before maybe do some final wrap up here?
I mean, as you might imagine, we're working on implementing all of this into my business and the clients that I work with. So the ways that we can use AI-enabled processes to improve their sales process at the companies I'm working with as a fractional sales manager, also the ways in which I can keep this one-person business and my army of bots growing. And it's interesting going into 2026, comparing the options that you have for human employees versus the options that you have to add on more AI services. But I don't think that trend is going the opposite direction anytime soon. It's an interesting challenge figuring out, instead of necessarily putting the right butts into seats, figuring out, is this going to be a person or is this going to be a process? And where do those two mix?
Any stories from Bangkok that you want to share? One of the interesting things that popped up for me is that, and we haven't talked about this in a while on the show, is that typically, me, you, and the team were in the team room, we're running all around, like doing all different kinds of things over the 5 days of the conference or whatever. But you actually bolted and sat down at a mastermind which I thought was
I did.
rare and shocking. Like,
Yeah, I had my first mastermind in many years at this Bangkok because we got to Friday morning. We were in a good position with the content. And frankly, I felt like I had a lot that I needed to work on to bring my agency to the table. And it was intimidating because I was at the table with people who in many ways were a lot more accomplished, way more accomplished in terms of content, where I am like very much the new guy. But I was reminded about how wonderful these mastermind tables are for both having the focus of 5 or 6 smart people onto the specific stuff that you are navel gazing at every day. I had worked up a problem in my head to be so complicated. And it's really striking when the other people at the table can look at it and say, well, the obvious answer here is to do more of what's working. And you would know this if you like zoomed out for a day, right? But then the degree to which I was able to bring sales expertise to some of these people who've got massive content channels and the goodwill of those like 8 people at the table to help each other. I think that I was reminded about why that's often the most impactful part of the conference, even if it does feel like going to the dentist a little bit, because there are so few opportunities to get that many smart people exchanging ideas and figuring out where their strengths and weaknesses can meld to make something special.
that's cool that you did that. Well, Jeff Pecaro from meetwingman.com, we appreciate you coming by the pod and sharing some of your sales tips and your insights. Look forward to seeing you in Mexico City in May. We already have over 100 attendees early registered. So we expect about 200 members to join us in Mexico City. It's going to be a blast.
Very excited to be back there. We've had a couple years away and lots of fun stuff to do in that city for sure.
All right, Jeff, thanks for joining us here on the TMBA pod. We'll be back next Thursday morning, as is per the usual. Thanks for listening.